I was a city councilman and mayor in Richmond, and when I got into local office, we had the second highest homicide rate in the United States. And we worked so very hard in 2 terms as city councilman and 2 terms as mayor to bring down gun violence, to bring down gun homicides, to bring down aggravated assaults. And we tried things that didn't work, and then we came up with new strategies, but we eventually succeeded. We eventually did bring down aggravated assaults and homicides by guns in Richmond, and that taught me something, which is you can't give up. That America suffers from an unacceptable, real public health emergency of gun violence, but we can't be despondent and say there's nothing we can do, because if you do the right things, you could make your community safer. When I was governor, the most searing experience of my 4 years from 2006 to 2010 was the massacre at Virginia Tech on April 15, 2007. And the loss of those 32 lives, completely unnecessary. Sung Wee Cho, the disturbed young man who took those lives, was barred from getting a weapon, but because of weaknesses in the background check system, he was able to get weapons that perpetrated the carnage. He was somebody who had deep mental health needs that had never been completely addressed. And when they were addressed, he could succeed and be a good student and get good grades. But when they weren't addressed, he would fall back into patterns that ultimately led to so much unnecessary destruction. My hope in the aftermath of the shooting at Virginia Tech was that we would rally together as a Commonwealth in mourning to take the steps necessary to make our community safer. And while we were able to take a number of steps, mental health, campus security, some executive actions I could take as governor, I couldn't convince my legislature, even in the aftermath of what at that time was the worst tragedy, mass shooting tragedy in the history of the United States, I couldn't convince my legislature to do something simple, make the background check system really, really work to stop crimes like this from ever happening again. That was very disappointing, but we didn't give up. We kept pushing in Virginia. Family members kept pushing. Advocacy groups kept pushing. Legislators would file bills to see them lose again and again and again, but not go away. And 13 years after Tech, in 2020, Virginia embraced a series of gun safety measures, and our state is safer as a result. It took 13 years from the Virginia Tech shooting to when that happened, and there were many other tragedies along the way on street corners in Richmond and other communities, and mass shootings like the shooting of municipal employees at Virginia Beach in 2020. But finally we acted. And so again, what I learned, just as I had learned in Richmond, you can't be despairing, even when it seems like nothing's going to happen. Even when you don't have the answer, you have to keep trying, and then someday will come when you can find a path forward. And in Virginia, the home of the National Rifle Association, we did. Well, I've had the same worry about Congress. I came into Congress between my election in 2012 and my inauguration into the Senate in January of 2013, horrible mass tragedy, the shooting of school children in Sandy Hook, Connecticut. These shootings give me PTSD because they just remind me of the pain of that horrible, horrible tragedy at Virginia Tech. I naively, as a brand new senator, thought, well, maybe we'll act now in Congress finally to do something. And yet we had a vote in April of 2013 around a reasonable package to fix our background check system, and it fell short. How disappointing. One of my worst days in the Senate. But I learned from my experience as mayor, and I learned from my experience as governor, that the one thing you can't do is give up. You can't give up. So that was 2013, and here we are 9 years later, and we've seen shootings at the Pulse nightclub in Las Vegas, and Parkland, and church shooting in Charleston, and synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh, and in recent months, massacre of people just going about their lives and shopping in Buffalo by somebody driven by a racist ideology that was so disturbing, and then the shooting of school children in Texas, and Congress was doing nothing. But finally, because people weren't willing to give up, we're on the verge today. In fact, the next vote I'll cast will be a vote to end debate and move toward a final passage vote on a common sense bill that will do some meaningful work on our gun laws, background checks, especially for young people, extreme risk protective orders for those who, because of a temporary challenge in their life, are a danger to themselves or others and need to be temporarily disabled from having a weapon during that moment. Significant increases in mental health, because Lord knows we've needed it for a long time, but particularly in the aftermath of 2 years of COVID and more than 1 million Americans dying, these mental health resources will have value in every community. And we're going to do it, and we're going to do it in a bipartisan way. You can't count the votes until it happens, but if we can get to 60 votes on the next vote I'll cast, then sometime in the next 24 hours we'll have a final passage vote where the threshold is just a simple majority 50. And if we can get the 60 vote cloture motion done here in the next hour or so, then we will be able to say, hey, we can do this. So, you know, again, I mean, it's just it's an old lesson, and it's a lesson in politics, and it's a lesson in life. You just got to keep trying. You can't let doubters get in your way. You can't let despair get in your way, and you can't let failure and losses get in your way. When you try and you fall short, you gotta keep pushing until you find a path forward. When I ran for the Senate in 2012, one of the things that convinced me was that I felt that I had some unfinished business after 16 years in public life. The unfinished business was Virginia tribes that had not yet been recognized despite decades of effort. The unfinished business was the lack of marriage equality. And one powerful bit of unfinished business was the unwillingness of elected officials at that point in Virginia or in Congress to do something meaningful to bring down gun violence. It feels good today. It feels really good to be on the threshold of saying that was unfinished business when I came here in 2013. But we are taking a big step forward, and I salute all those who've been involved in it, and my colleagues who have been willing to join, even those who in the past might not have been willing to join the effort. I salute all of them.